Hey folks, how's it going? Gil Narvaez with Fortitude Consulting, and we are talking about grip, right? Let's discuss how to grip the firearm. Not from the standpoint of any specific technique. I will be showing you how I grip the firearm, simply because that's the way I'm used to doing it. But what I want to pass along are some concepts on gripping the firearm, and why those concepts are important and why they will end up helping you, even though your grip may look a little bit different from mine. When it comes to talking about grip, first and foremost, we need to understand how the gun operates and what's going on with the gun while it's going off and we're shooting it, right? So with a semi-automatic pistol, we've got a reciprocating slide, right? That reciprocating mass is moving to the rear, but the firearm does not move to the rear as it goes off. It actually will rotate on an axis. Why does it rotate on an axis? Well, because we have this lever right here known as the grip or the frame. We exacerbate that axis by gripping onto the firearm from that lever. So our interaction with the gun actually exacerbates the way the gun will move when it comes to recoil. If we were to take the gun and just lay it on top of a table with no external, no grip or anything like that, we're not having any external influence whatsoever, and we were to actuate the trigger, it would spin literally all the way around in that direction because of the lever that's here. Okay, now that we've got an understanding of how the gun functions and why it operates that way, let's talk about what we can do to utilize that knowledge to mitigate felt recoil. Well, if the firearm is moving on an axis and the muzzle's rising, what else do we see moving? We see the frame of the firearm moving. Specifically, the front strap of the firearm is moving forward. That has to happen in order for that muzzle to rise. So theoretically, if we could place something in front of that front strap and block that front strap from moving forward, what ends up happening to muzzle rise and felt recoil? It is mitigated. It's not eliminated completely, but it is definitely mitigated. Where do we have, if we're placing something in front of the front strap, where do we have the most leverage on this actual front strap? Well, it's obvious that if we go as far away from the fulcrum, we'll have the most amount of leverage, which is going to be right here at the front of the front strap, right on the bottom. This is a concept that was born of, or actually I was exposed to by Scott Jedlinski with Modern Samurai Project, when he talks about getting the dot, right? Actually utilizing pressure down here at the lowest lever point in order to get that dot to drop down. But it doesn't just work for getting the dot, it also works for mitigating recoil. So what am I referring to? What do we, if we know for a fact that we have to have pressure at the bottom of the front strap, what fingers do we have, or what do we have available? I just gave it away. What do we have available to go ahead and attain a level of pressure down at the bottom of that front strap? Well, our pinkies, the pinky and the ring finger. Those are super important when it comes to attaining that leverage on the front strap. So when we do that, you'll see here, I go ahead and fit my support side hand into the firearm by rotating in and engaging the ring and pinky finger. Now, how do I do that without actually thinking about it? Because when I can do things without thinking about them, they're going to be far more efficient than if I have to consciously think about applying ring and pinky pressure. Well, I do that by thinking of this. If you were to take your thumb and grab it right here, that makes this portion of your hand look like a drumstick that you just pulled out of a bowl of chicken wings. So I want you to think of this drumstick portion of your hand And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that drumstick portion of our hand and we're gonna drive that drumstick portion of our hand as high on the frame as we need to in order to get that ring and pinky finger engaged. When it comes to grip pressure, our thumbs don't really make a difference from the standpoint of applying pressure. And I'll show you how and why that works here in just a second. But what they do for us is they give us a marker that particularly our support side hand is in the right spot. So if you look at my thumbs, when I drive that drumstick up high on the frame, my thumb ends up being at or above the bore line. At or above the bore line is pretty much perfect for me, right? The moment that I start driving that thumb forward and I get below the bore line, I can literally feel my support side hand being pulled away from the gun. The support side hand is our anchor. That's the one that is going to not just help us with recoil mitigation, but that's going to keep the gun in line with the target. So by driving that thumb forward, it makes it super, super inefficient. What we want to see is we want to see that thumb either at or above the bore line. You can keep that thumb just alongside the slide of the firearm. You're not going to interrupt the function whatsoever as long as you're not putting any inboard pressure into the slide itself. So that right there represents perfect hand positioning. If you'll look at hand positioning from the standpoint of how it looks, right? This right here looks like a pretty decent grip. This is what you would think of as your traditional thumbs forward grip that I've been taught in law enforcement for almost 3 decades now that does not work very well. If you'll look at that and actually look at the engagement on the ring and pinky fingers, which again we said are the most important fingers on here right now, they're really not engaged in that position. The moment I drive that drumstick up just a little bit higher, you'll see what happens when I drive it up just a fraction of an inch higher. It actually engages the ring and pinky finger. Why am I saying from a pressure standpoint that the ring and the pinky finger are important? Well, if you'll take your dominant hand and then grasp it with your support side hand, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and generate as much pressure as you can. Now, keeping that pressure on, go ahead and lift just your thumb and see if you feel a significant change in pressure, if you will. You'll find that there's really not that much of a significant change in pressure. However, if you grasp your hand and you lift your pinky, you'll find a significant change in the amount of pressure that you can apply to your dominant side hand. So therefore, from a pressure standpoint, the pinky and ring finger are super important. If you'll think of this in the sense of, let's think about grasping something, right? There's a difference between a detailed grasp that we need dexterity with and a full hand grasp. If I were to pick up this flashlight, typically I'm going to use my pincer fingers. Why do I use my pincer fingers? Because I'm able to utilize that dexterity to go ahead and pick that item up. I would not reach down with my ring and pinky finger to do that. It just wouldn't make sense. It doesn't feel right, if you will. However, let's think about this. If you were on a rope climb and you were actually climbing and supporting the weight of your body, which fingers are engaged and actually anchoring you into that rope, allowing you to climb up? That's going to be these little bad boys right here, okay? So those are very strong and very, very important fingers when it comes to gripping the pistol and applying as much leverage to the gun as you will. Those are the two things that we need. We need leverage and friction. And as we go ahead and fit that support side hand in, driving that drumstick into the frame of the firearm and up towards the back of the actual slide is going to create friction, and it also subsequently creates leverage with the ring and pinky fingers on the front strap of the firearm. there are a couple of other things to keep in mind when it comes to grip pressure. When we typically see someone is not utilizing or not mitigating recoil properly, well, that gun is either flopping around as it's going off or it's actually coming out of their hand while they're firing it. Typically, what do we tell them? We typically tell them, hey, go ahead and grip harder, right? We just tell them to go ahead and smash down on the grip. The end result of that is it exacerbates the problem. Why does it exacerbate the problem? Because if you think about it from this standpoint, if I'm utilizing my support side hand and I'm just smashing down, right? Here's what ends up happening. We have our dominant side hand with the gun in it, and I bring my support side hand, and all I do is I just beer can crush, if you will, and I smash down on it. You can see what's happening with my dominant side hand. It's literally pushing with my support side hand crunching down, it is literally pushing my dominant side hand out of that pocket. The same thing happens when we're gripping the gun and all we do is we smash down on that support side hand. That's pulling the gun or pushing the gun out of the support side hand pocket, and eventually what ends up happening is the gun starts jumping out. Instead of utilizing a beer can crush, what we're going to do is we're going to lever into our grip with the support side hand. What do I mean by levering into our grip? What you're going to do is you're going to take your thumb and the drumstick of your hand, you're going to drive it upwards. For me, it works to do this at about a 45-degree angle. And when I go ahead and drive that thumb up at a 45-degree angle, you can see I'm driving these fingers on the support side hand into the front strap of the firearm. When I do that, what ends up happening is I generate pressure with leverage, not with strength, right? I'm generating pressure with leverage, not with strength. And the other thing that it does is it keeps everything in place. If we look at it from this standpoint, before we were using the beer can crush, right? If we go ahead and lever into the hand, that hand stays in place. The same thing's going to happen when we lever into the gun. The gun actually stays in place. Both hands stay together throughout the entire firing cycle. How can we see for ourselves that not only is this more efficient, but it's stronger to use leverage over strength? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to ask you to take your dominant hand and grasp it with your support side hand. What I want you to do is I want you to crunch down with as much pressure as you can in a beer can grip on your dominant side hand. Feel what that pressure feels like. Then what I'm going to ask you to do is do the same thing. Grasp onto your dominant hand, and I want you to lever into your dominant side hand as if you're levering into the gun being there. And feel the difference in the amount of pressure you can generate with a levered grip rather than a beer can crush. You will find that it's pretty significant. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, be very careful on the levered grip as you are applying that pressure to your own hand, because it's super easy, as efficient as that is, it's super easy for you to overdo it and actually start tweaking the joints and the ligaments in your hand. So be very careful with that, but you will find that that lever grip is super, super strong and much more powerful than a beer can grip. Why does it work that way? Well, I mean, these are pretty general principles. If we think about this from just about any other physical activity that we do, which one is more sustainable, strength or leverage? Eventually, strength is going to fatigue. Eventually, your muscles are going to get tired. If I walked over to that door and I had someone trying to get in and I just stood in front of it and I tried to hold it back with just the strength of my arms and my biceps, eventually I'm going to get tired. That door's going to come open. But if I go ahead and lean forward on it and use leverage of actually leaning up against the door with all of my body weight, I will be able to sustain that a lot longer. It works the exact same way with the grip. So those are the concepts that we are talking about. We want to generate friction. We want to generate leverage on the gun. And the way we go about doing that, A, is to make sure that we are applying leverage down here to the bottom of the front strap with those smaller fingers by driving that drumstick of the firearm, or I'm sorry, drumstick of the hand up onto the firearm, applying pressure into the frame and towards the back of the slide, the back plate or the hammer, depending on what you happen to be running, and utilizing that leverage to stick to the gun throughout the entire firing cycle. I think that you will find utilizing those concepts, even if our grips don't look exactly alike, utilizing those concepts will help you greatly visualize exactly what you need to do and apply those pressures in the exact spots that you need to be as efficient as you can with the grip. One of the things that I tell my clients on a regular basis is that when it comes to gripping the gun appropriately, it's not just, or it's not even about gripping harder and just gripping harder. It's about gripping smarter. Make sure that you are utilizing the pressures in the right spots at the right time and that you're utilizing leverage when you absolutely can, and you'll find that your grip becomes more efficient than you ever thought it could be. I hope this helped you out. Take a look at these concepts. Go ahead and work them into your own training. Give me some feedback, shoot me some comments or some messages. Let me know if this has helped you, or if you could think of something different that we might be able to utilize to enhance these concepts that we've come up with. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Appreciate everybody's time. And remember, follow the process. Train, prepare, prevail. Signing off.